Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here to talk about the full moon. So I just did a recent report on our conjunction between Mars and Rahu, which is happening on Friday, the 26th. And we also have a conjunction between Venus and the Sun happening at the same time. So these are exact conjunctions. The Sun and Venus are already together in Pisces, and Rahu and Mars are already together in Taurus. But at this point on Friday, we're going to see both of these hit their exact points. And then on Sunday, we have our full moon in sidereal Virgo. So it's really kind of an exciting week. And I want to focus this video on what the full moon is bringing. So really, we've already passed through the gate of the stuff that I spoke about in the last meeting with Mars and Rahu by the time the full moon comes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see what we're talking about here. And I say this is an exciting time because it really is an exciting time. There's this explosive energy I was talking about, with Rahu and Mars coming together, and you can see by the full moon, Mars will already be out of Rahu's realm. Rahu's at 1844. This is the north node of the moon. Mars at 2022. So Mars is moving forward and the nodes move backwards. And so they're going to hit pitch center on Friday and then keep going. And once they pass each other, that explosive quality starts to diminish immediately, because it's more of a building up to conjunctions. And then as they start to separate, the energy starts to fade. So being the same degrees after, as opposed to the same degrees before, is a very different experience, a very different situation. I've got the sun coming up to join me, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about. So this full moon we see is in Virgo. It's in sidereal Virgo in the star of Hasta. And Hasta is represented by an open palm, an open hand. And the way I always think of this nakshatra, the star, is this releasing, like we're releasing in our open palm everything that's not serving us anymore. And we're making space for what we do want to bring into our life. And I have you can see my open palm. So what are you letting go of? And what are you calling into the palm of your hands? This is a star of manifestation. The deity of it is Savitur, who is the part of the sun that we first see coming up on the horizon. So it's the part of the sun we almost, before it even rises. And then as those first rays of light come, that's Savitur. And it's really important to understand that manifestation when we talk about this a lot in sort of new age circles of what are we manifesting, what are we making, what are we bringing into our life. Like we're the doers of all this stuff, and all we need to do is set our intention on something and bam, it'll appear. Well, in some ways that's true, but what people who are manifesting are doing is actually calling in God or goddess, whatever your relationship with source is. Their manifestation comes from a separation actually from the ego and the will and the part of us that thinks we do everything with our own two hands. This is one of the stressors of Virgo as a sign, and all of the zodiac signs, you can see a star within them that challenges that thing, that makes us have to really surrender to almost the opposite of what that sign carries with it. And in this case with Virgo, there's this real quality of, organization and putting everything in its special place, and this quality of purification and wanting everything to be brand new again. And the distaste or disgust that comes when things can't be perfect. And we live in a messy world. Things are really never perfect. And the minute we start living our life, the minute we come out, our perfection starts to fade. With every day we get older, with every day we get closer to death and closer to old age and farther from that pristine new condition we were once in. And that's true for objects we buy, for clothes we have, for our material body. It's true for all things that are of this material world. And Virgo is an earth sign. It's of the material existence. And so this need to purify and clean and try to make things right again it's like a never fulfilling prophecy, whatever the opposite of self-fulfilling, but it's this thing where it's like, it can't ever be. And so the struggle is real because we have this desire to make things neat. We want them to fit in their place, and they don't. And this is where the energy across the way of Pisces comes in, where we're able to step back and merge with everything and see everything as possible, lose all the boxes in the organization, and start to let those blurred lines feed into one another. That's how we recognize oneness. That's why Pisces is the natural 12th house. It's the house where we are footless and where we literally can merge with spirit. That's necessary in order for us to get to that level of of consciousness that we care to get to, if we're on a spiritual path. But we still live in a world, right? And there's actual stuff happening in the world. And if everything's just kind of footless and free and we don't have any lines around it, we can't really make anything happen in the world. Everything becomes this nebulous, like, sea of stuff. So unless we're truly evolved enough to handle that, it won't make things happen on this plane. More often than not, it'll end up being more like escapism or something that is taking us farther from our truth and not closer to it. So this is something that can be a really big positive connection, that the sun and the moon are obviously across from each other because it's a full moon. The sun is illuminating the moon across the way, showing it in its full glory, but it's joined. And this Venus sun conjunction was exact on Friday too, but it's already, it's still very close on this day. So Venus is giving drishti directly to moon, and moon is giving drishti to Venus. Now, these are the two female planets, the Venus and the moon. This is how we connect. These are our relationship planets. And this Rahu Mars conjunction is happening in Venus's sign of Taurus. So first of all, Venus is affecting this explosive energy is coming from the relationship Venus is in right now. And it's an exalted relationship Venus is in. Venus is in a situation where we can move beyond this sort of back and forth, give and take, you owe me because I gave you, and we have these contracts and these agreements and these, binds that we've created with one another. Venus in Pisces is that boundless thing again, where we're really offering our love up through God and not just to another bag of bones, where we're seeing the God in one another, and we're not, we're not bringing our relationship to such a human level as it is in Venus's own signs of Taurus and Libra, where we might have a lot of happiness and a lot of comfort, a lot of joy, and a lot of capacity to really compromise. With Venus and Pisces, you lose the even need to compromise. It's not about compromise anymore. It's not about what these social contracts. It becomes about really each one of us having our own relationship to God. And if we ever hope to have a truly, truly, high level relationship where we are merging together and moving into that, that tantric promise of oneness, we have to have this element in it. There has to be another player. Two humans with human needs will never get there without bringing God into it. It's a necessary function, and it's a necessary part of deepening our relationship. And truly great relationships are because the individuals in them have that personal connection to their own work, their own, shadow work they've had to do, but also to God or to goddess or to energy or to whatever, I have a lot of planets in Pisces, so I'm really comfortable using any word that works for people. My own personal, feelings and experiences have a lot to do with feminine energy and the goddess. But I as a child used to call God energy and love, because I was uncomfortable with the word God or goddess. I was raised in a more secular home. So I think whatever works to help you understand that there's spirit in this world that is beyond our material existence, and it's animating us, and it is animating everything else also. And so however you can connect to that is beautiful. So this crossways experience that we're having between our unconditionally loving self in the very, conditioned sign of Virgo, where everything is wrong and there's so many problems. Virgo has a quality of healing and purification that comes out, but it starts from a place of seeing what's wrong more often than not. More often than not, the Virgo energy has a critical edge to it, because it's trying to organize things and finding again and again they're never organized. Finding that as soon as you put something away, I mean, anyone who has children knows, you put the laundry away and then it's somehow jumped out of the drawer again. It's an ongoing process. The idea that we can keep things perfect, clean, neat, pristine is a joke. It's a cosmic joke. It's not possible. And so Virgo has to deal with a lot of the pain, a lot of the suffering, a lot of that feeling of victimization that occurs. But then also the great healing that can come if we're able to recognize that cosmic joke and still work to heal, still work to purify. You can do cleanses, you can do fasts, you can keep, herbal remedies around you. And really, for people who have Virgo in their chart, I often recommend keeping a lot of greenery and plants around them, especially if it's Virgo moon, to really soothe your soul. Because we do live in a world that's very riled up, and beyond just being messy or imperfect, we actually live in a world that's quite ugly a lot of the time, as we have seen and as we are seeing through this Rahu Mars conjunction. So all of that ugliness can be very hard for that Virgo energy to handle. And there's two things we can do. First of all, just through the body, just healing our body, doing breath work, pranayam, balancing tips. And I put some of those in my Rahu Mars post as links, because I really believe that if we take things from the physical realm first and sort of calm our basic body, then we're immediately able to move into calmer states in our mind and handle things from a better place. The more ragged we are, the more frayed we are at the edges, the more we're running from here to there, the less fed we are, the less our needs are being met physically, the less capable we're ever going to be of relating, in calm centered ways, and the more likely we are to be triggered. So it's important to take care of the body, and Virgo and all the earth signs really bring that up for us. But especially Virgo, because there's a real sensitive nervous system. And so the need is even greater to really find peace and calm in that. And maybe even time alone, and things like that. Music can be very healing. There's a lot of ways to heal ourselves there. But the quality of the moon is one of unconditional love, right? We're trying to be unconditionally loving. And in Virgo, that's very hard, because everything is so conditioned on this perfection and on this quality of things being where they're supposed to be. It's very hard to release that and find the unconditional love. While Cancer is the sign of unconditional love, Pisces has a lot more in common with that. It's less about the over nurturing and the mothering and that kind of quality. It's more about the relationship with God, with Source. But it does still have that feeling of unconditionality, where it's not about all the things that, like I said, Venus and Pisces, it's not about the you did this for me, now I have to do this for you, this sort of back and forth thing. It's not about the fairness anymore, which Venus can get very, very hung up on, and rightfully so. If you're in a relationship where it's very one-sided, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be in a relationship where your needs aren't being met. So Venus is essentially needs to be aware that there is a give and take and something's there. And when we evolve it through spirit, we no longer are going to even want to be around somebody who's just selfishly taking for themselves. It wouldn't be a relationship we would choose to be in. We might be kind to somebody that we encounter who has that energy, but we don't invite them into our inner world, our inner sphere. So this is something that Venus can really teach the moon. And it's hard because Venus being so close to the sun is what we call combust. And that closeness makes us feel underappreciated. The hot rays of the sun actually burn away the energy of the graha of Venus getting to us. And so we feel underappreciated. We feel underloved, under-admired, and not as seen as we want to be seen. And the beauty of it is that it is in Pisces. So we're less attached to that. We're less attached to feeling admired or seen or appreciated, because we have God. We don't, we don't need this other person to show up for us in all these ways because we have this other thing. But it doesn't mean that we won't feel hurt by it, especially depending on, what our relationship with Venus is personally. We will feel some sense of feeling a little hurt and feeling a little bit underappreciated. And that in the wrong person, and by wrong person, I don't think anyone's actually wrong here, but I mean, in somebody with whom the energy of Venus is already challenged, like say if they have Venus debilitated in Virgo, or somebody who feels a lot of resentment already, this Rahu Mars in Venus's own sign of Taurus could be quite explosive. And we see that with somebody who would shoot people, right? That feeling that they have of whatever's going on for them is enough to create an energy where they actually want to harm other people physically. But on a personal level or individual level, we all might have ways that we hurt people that we love, just by getting angry, or just by, having a conversation that's a little harsh, or dismissing their views, or dismissing their contributions, or telling them that they're not a good person because they're not living life the way we're living life. Whatever it is that we might do with our own explosive anger, it's all microcosms and macrocosms of each other. We live in a fractaled world. We live in a world where the smallest detail shows us the biggest picture. And the more we tune into that, especially when it comes to relationships with ourself, what are we doing that's reflecting that? And how are we playing a part in that energy existing on the earth? Because the more we just point fingers at other people and only see what they're doing wrong, even when it's somebody doing something so atrocious that it's very easy to say they're doing something wrong, if we're not looking at how our own behavior contributes to that, then we're not really getting the meat. We're not learning. We're not growing. We're not advancing to the next level. And this is a time to advance to the next level. Whatever it is that's been under your horizon, that sun that's just there, and you're just starting to see those early rays of it, now's the time to embrace it. We have this nakshatra, this moon of manifestation in an earth sign where things can happen with all this blessing from spirit here. And whatever explosive energy happened with Rahu Mars, hey, you know what? Angry energy, dark energy, shadow energy, this kind of stuff that comes out does clear pathways, right? The dynamite breaks whatever was there blocking the way forward. So sometimes it's really messy, and whatever happens can be very hard for us to handle. But if we look at all of the challenging situations we've had in our life, more often than not, they move us closer to our truth. They move us closer to where we want to go. It's not the easy energy, because that usually keeps us pretty safe and settled where we are. It's the challenging stuff that forces us to go forward. So maybe we moved, maybe that explosive energy got some people out of our lives that honestly were weighing us down, or we were spending too much of our emotional energy on those relationships in ways that weren't actually serving us or what our greater purpose is. Maybe we were able to blow up a reality and an understanding of things in society, or some of our beliefs, or some of our family's beliefs, or our friends' beliefs. Whatever that explosive energy is, we need to move away from good and bad, because even Venus in Pisces is not good. And, Mars in Taurus is not bad with Rahu. You know what I mean? These things aren't good or bad. They're just a matter of how do they move us closer to truth, or do they move us farther away from truth? And for each of us, it's going to depend on our relationship with these energies. It 100% will, and also these houses. But Mercury is the ruler of the moon here, right? So we see Venus as the ruler of this explosion. Mercury is the ruler of the moon, and it's over here in Aquarius. Well, Mercury in Aquarius, and we see it's at the very final degrees of Aquarius here, it's in the last 5 degrees, we have a real chance to take our intellect, to take our discernment and our buddhi, that capacity to really wade through all the information, and we can envision something for society, for the future, something that's inclusive, something that's evolving. I already see it posted in people's memes and whatnot that they're posting on social media. The ideas are percolating. People are coming into the realization that we live in a very strange society where there's 3 people 3 to 6 people who have this much wealth and this much control over everyone else. People are waking up to these things, and they're starting to come up with new ideas, because we can complain till we're blue in the face, but all that complaining does is just get us down and down, further and further down rabbit holes, because we'll always be able to prove that those 3 people suck. It's not going to be very hard. Anyone who wants that much money or has that much money and is using it there's something inherently wrong with them. there's no question about that. That's not something we need to talk about. Are they sociopaths? I mean, you would have to be to want that much money. Like at this point, to still be trying to get more money and to not be dispersing it out in other ways. I mean, there's something wrong with you. So that's a moot point. What can we, all the other people on this earth who hold so much more power just in our bodies, our collective energy being here, than those 3 men can ever own by having some paper and some computers that stacked up saying that they own something? We have power. And each of us has a vision for what needs to be fixed in society. What is the whole? What are the many wholes? And we might have conflicting ideas because we're coming from different confirmation biases, we're coming from different information sources, and we're coming from different beliefs, most importantly, different beliefs. But each of us, if we take that vision of what we see wrong with society, guaranteed we're a little bit right. Whatever we're seeing is a little bit right about a problem. And we can make a little bit of a difference in that one way that we can. And so this is a time to really kind of formulate that, because Aquarius has that quality of being able to see the future, being able to use rationale and an intellectual state of mind to figure out how that could be, and to take into account compassion and the need for all of us to thrive. The need for it not just to be the kings here in Leo, but actually all the other people. If the kings aren't serving these people, guess what? The kings get overthrown. And they get overthrown not by fighting war, battle, all these things, not fighting with the same energy that we've been fighting all this time. There's new ways to do things, new ideas, and it's collectivism, it's communities, it's small groups of people getting together and seeing their vision come to life through the problems that they've seen in society over the course of their lifetimes, or over the course. Usually there has to be some lived experience involved. If we're just all in the world of theory and everything's about something we learned in a book, we're missing a lot. So it's about living amongst human people, and not spiritually bypassing, but living the real existence here on earth and seeing what's actually happening, and talking to people if we don't know. So the problems are not problems that are over there and that somebody, that we can just march in and fix the problem for, a different race or another gender, or people who are on a gender spectrum, or people who are poor. We don't really have the capacity to go in and fix other people's problems. We can fix our own problems, we can recognize problems, and we can put energy towards them. But the drivers of change need to be the ones on the ground floor who understand what's actually happening. So we don't need rich people fixing poor people's problems, is kind of what I'm saying. We need rich people to understand the inequity of wealth and to understand why they're rich. And once that really clicks in their head and they get out of the mindset of like, oh, I deserve this or whatever, however their mind has trained them and their societal connections have trained them to think about it, that wake up call is the shift in mindset. That's the shift in mindset. But we also need poor people to step up and realize why they're poor, and recognize that ultimately we live in a society that has been super skewed. But we do have personal power, each of us. We have the capacity to step up and take action in some direction, and we need each other. That's one of the most beautiful things I found in my life from traveling, is that I've had this unique opportunity as a person to really sit in rooms, or in some cases at tables, and in some cases on the floor, of some of the absolute richest people on this earth's homes, and some of the absolute poorest people in this earth's homes, and feel quite comfortable in both situations. Not feel less than or something in the rich home, and not feel better than or anything in the poorer homes, but really to feel myself in both situations, and to feel very much human amongst humans. And that blessing of those experiences and seeing how it works has always led me down the same kind of mindset of, wow, one thing I see is that people who have less tend to collect. They tend to come together. It's necessity. It's a basis in necessity where you can't survive without each other. But oddly, that brings happiness. And the separation that comes when people have more of, now they have to worry everyone's trying to take it from them and everyone's going to get it from them. And everything is this, this thing, or do people like me for me or because I have money, or now I have all these things I have to do because my family lineage is making me do these things. There's so much pressure and so much involved with hoarding and having too much that it actually seems much more painful and like much more of a struggle. So one of the things we're learning collectively right now, and when Jupiter moves into Aquarius in April, we'll really see this step up with our collective beliefs. But the learning from those, the learning doesn't come from those who have too much, because they're living in a state of fear and keeping and projection and all these other things, because that's inherent to that, to living like that. If you live with having a lot and there's other people who have no home or no food and you have 5 houses, and I mean, there's only so much you can live with that disconnect, right? There's a part where it can drive you kind of mad. And I worked in restaurants for many years. I saw people come, sit and have a very expensive lobster meal or something, sitting down by themselves, night after night after night. A bartender or a server is like your closest friend to talk to. And oftentimes they'd want to offer me some of their, lobster or whatever, because it's like, it doesn't feel good to be by yourself, isolated in your bubble. So of course there's other people that can connect to people, and most people connect based on their class, on their amount of money they have. So you feel comfortable because everyone's going to the same meal, or everyone's going here, everyone's going there. But if you suddenly lose all your money and you were hanging out in the population of people who have a lot of money, that changes the dynamic. And suddenly now you're someone who needs something they have, and it becomes a problem. Whereas in poorer communities, everybody needs something somebody else has. It's literally part of this deal. It's part of the deal, and we all survive together and we help each other survive together. And that concept, that idea, is actually what we need more infused into our world, because we need more of the idea that we need each other, because we do. We need God and we need each other. We're not in this alone. We're not one-handed people, men and women or whatever, forcing our way through life. That's not who we are. And that's not what we want to teach our children. We don't want to teach our children that it's only with their own 2 hands that things happen. First of all, that brings us undue attachment to the results of our actions. And second of all, it brings us undue attachment to our failings as well. Like, all that we've done well, we get accolades for. Well, all that we've done wrong, we have to take the blame for also, which is very harsh reality, to think that it's just all on us and all on our own shoulders. That's not just lonely, it's depressing. And so we are collectively moving more and more into understanding this. And it's through external forces. It's not even, out of a deep inner awakening for most. For many, it will be that deep inner awakening, but we've been having that for a long time. There's many people on this earth right now who've been working towards this for a very long time, and who've known it and felt it and had their finger on that button for many, many years. And I do include myself among those people, because this has been something I've been looking at my whole life. I've never not seen this. And it's beautiful to see it awakening on a bigger scale now. It's beautiful to see more people coming into it. It's sad that it has to come from, harsh circumstances or painful events. But at the same time, that's how awakening occurs. That's usually how it goes. So it's, we can honor our feelings, and we can honor the sadness of it. And we can also be really excited for what the future holds as a result of all of this. So I'm excited, and I hope you are too. And this quality of the moon being here, by the way, just from this, from the perspective of houses, we have like this dharmic house trine with these earth signs. So this full moon is here in Virgo, which is an earth sign, and then Jupiter and Saturn are in Capricorn. Saturn's in his own sign, really helping that debilitated Jupiter. And then we have Rahu Mars here in Taurus. So the energy isn't all pleasant. I spoke about this in the Rahu Mars video of Jupiter giving the 5th-house drishti to Rahu Mars. And then Jupiter's also giving his 9th-house drishti to the moon, because Jupiter gives dharmic drishtis. He's the indicator of our truth, of our true path, and both of children and how they're our teachers, and of teachers, gurus who help bring the darkness to light. And so he gives these dharmic house drishtis, this 5th-house drishti, this 9th-house drishti. And again, he's in a state of debilitation, and that's not to be overlooked, but he's joined the ruler Saturn, giving some strength. He's been here for a while, since November. So we're walking through the gate of it. The initial fear and constriction is moving through in a more practical way. And these are all earth signs. So there's a practicality. There's a quality where physical explosions are occurring and actual manifestation can happen. We can actually use our mind and our emotions to bring to being what's been coming underneath the surface, the sun that's been shining underneath the surface and coming up, as Savitar would have us do. And there's actually a mantra, the Gayatri Mantra, which many people know and practice or chant. And that is one that can be very blessed for this full moon to chant. The actual hours are going to be 8:48 a.m. In Hawaii, where I live. So it'll be later on in the day for other people. But I always like on a full moon to honor it sort of the night before as it's coming into, because by the time it's the night again, the energy will have peaked and started to dissipate again. So that's always the same concept I was talking about with the conjunction, where it's leading up to it is the power, and then it starts to fade a little bit afterwards. But that mantra for us, for the Gayatri Mantra, I'll chant it once now, and you're welcome to join in if you know it. And if not, just allow it to enter you if you so choose. Om Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dimahi Diyo Yona Prachodayat. Om. So this full moon also marks the Holi festival, the start of spring that happens in India. And this festival, maybe you've seen pictures, there's a lot of colors, everybody's like putting these powdered dyes all over each other. And it's very fun, it's very festive. And there's a lot of celebration and celebratory energy. And the colors are really the spring, right? The flowers are going to start blooming. Life is going to start happening. Animals are going to be being born. All of the darkness of winter is fading, and the light of spring has arrived, and growth and all that comes with that. But there's also a myth involved that shows how it's the moving from the darkness to the light in a spiritual sense as well. So we're moving from the energy of the asuras, of the demon energy, which literally means without light, asura, into our higher godlike qualities. And the myth is based on this demon king named Hiranyakashipu, and he is, obsessed with himself. He wants everyone to worship him. He has all this power and all this control, and everybody really does whatever he says, except for his own son, Prahlad. And his son is just this thorn in him that won't let up. His son is completely born into devotion to Vishnu, and he has no respect or admiration for his father and his father's power. Everything his father has done in order to gain power, he looks down upon. And all he does is just, recite mantras to Vishnu all day long and just pray and meditate and devote himself in one pointed attention to this deity. And it enrages his father to the point where his father actually tries to have him killed on several occasions, but he's unsuccessful every time because his son does have this incredibly high level of devotion. And so he finally devises a plan where his sister Holika is going to help him. And Holika has a boon herself where she can't burn in fire. She has a boon from Agni where if she's in fire, she doesn't burn. So he says, okay, so we'll put this chair here. You're going to bring Prahlad onto your lap and we'll light a fire around you, and you won't burn, but he will. And this will finally be his demise. So Prahlad, trusting his aunt and whatever way he does, maybe just listening to her, not necessarily trusting her. He goes and sits on her lap. They light the fire, and Holika finds out that her boon was actually contingent on her being alone in the fire. Once she brought Prahlad in, her boon was canceled and she burns. But Prahlad, sitting there in his one-pointed devotion, just praying and using his mantras to call in the form of Vishnu, is completely fine and saved. And of course, this continues to be an issue for his father. And eventually his father is killed by Vishnu himself, coming in the form of a lion and Narasimha. And his father actually had a boon also, which is how he gained so much power, which is that no one could kill him. Not a man, not a woman, not inside, not outside, not at night, not during the day. There were all these rules as to how he couldn't die. But there's always a way in with these boons, because they're never promising immortality. Whenever somebody gains a boon, usually from Brahma or Shiva, the boon has a place, an opening where someone can enter in and kill them. And in this case, Vishnu came as Narasimha, as a lion, so he was a beast. He wasn't a man or a woman. He did it at dusk, so it wasn't night or day. He did it on the threshold of the home, of the palace, so it wasn't inside or outside. And I can't remember if there was any other opposites of things that he couldn't do, but that was, that's ultimately how Hiranyakashipu is killed. But in Holi celebration, the day before Holi, which in India is actually Sunday, right? Because India is quite a bit ahead of, especially me in Hawaii, but even the mainland US, India is a good 13 hours later than Los Angeles, like 13 and a half hours or 12 and a half hours, something like that. So the celebration on Sunday in India with that timing would be the day before the full moon. And it's an honoring of that. It's the fire, the effigy of holy burning, of Holika burning. And then the actual day of the full moon begins the celebration with the colors and everything. So this is a little, blast into spring. And it also really helps to celebrate, right? And to enjoy everything we're manifesting, everything we're experiencing, all of this sort of seriousness and gravity of things. We also have room and space to just celebrate and find that community, find that quality of the people that we want to celebrate with. Who do we want to throw colors with? And what are we painting? What are we growing in this next season, in this next time? So hope this was helpful for you. And if you are not already on my email list, you can sign up for that at www.radhahomeyoga.com. And I have, new moon, full moon reports, new moon and full moon reports, and also occasional forecasts on other things that are happening. Like I just did one on that Mars Rahu, as I was saying. And I also do free reports for all 12 signs when there's big transits, and we have one coming up really soon. Jupiter is going to be moving into Aquarius, as I commented on earlier, and I'm going to do a report for that on all 12 signs. So keep your eyes and ears peeled, and I hope to see you again really soon. Happy full moon and happy Holi. Namaste.